Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to focus on step 2. If you haven't already completed step 1, which is defining your target audience, that's okay, but stop this video, go back and watch that one, complete the exercise, and then join us. So let's dive in. The second step is to listen to your clients. I know, that doesn't sound all that exciting or crazy. However, it's a practice that very few people actually do. Let me share a little story. So when I was working at my very first startup company, I begged for a sales territory. Keep in mind, I had never sold anything before. Well, I mean, maybe Girl Scout cookies, but nothing of significant value. I was determined I was gonna be number one, I was gonna be great, I was gonna close all these deals. And so I would practice my presentations with my friends, I would refine my slides, and then I would go into the meetings, and it seemed like they never went how I had practiced. And each one seemed to be worse than the last one, regardless of what I practiced and how I refined my slides. So I asked one of my more experienced colleagues, hey, can I join you on a few sales calls? I promise I won't say anything. All I'll do is listen to what you say. Well, after spending a day with the sales rep, I quickly realized it had nothing to do with what the sales rep was saying. It had everything to do with listening to what the prospect was telling the sales rep. And by that I mean, in this conversation, the prospect was telling us what she liked about our service, what she hated about her job or what made it challenging, so her pain points, what competitors she evaluated. I mean, basically, she gave me the sales pitch that then I used and took to close my first deal. This is formally known as voice of client. This is a research process of collecting insights and feedback from your customers on why they purchased your product or service and what their expectations are. In doing voice of client, you'll be able to glean a much better understanding of how others perceive the value of your business. It's easy when you're a startup founder to get tunnel vision on what you think is the value versus what others actually perceive. I cannot recommend or emphasize the importance of this practice, regardless if you need to do new messaging or not. Remember in step 1 when we talked about your target audience? Well, if there were any of those traits that you weren't 100% sure were right, here's your chance to validate that. Really begin to understand what are the titles, what are their preferences for communication, how did they make their decision, where do they get their information? If you're stuck on what questions to ask, I recommend breaking your questions down into different categories. Personally, I break it down into 7 different categories. These are decisions, client experience, your website or digital footprint, which includes social media, communication, competition, awareness, and then a general category. This general category can include industry-specific things, or if you are rolling out a new product or rolling out a new approach, you can ask questions specifically relating back to that. It can be tricky to think of questions to ask, so I'll give you some thought starters. Let me share some of the questions I ask when I'm doing voice of client interviews. Here we go. What factors matter most to you when selecting a company? What are the main reasons you chose your company? Have you ever visited our website? Did you click on anything? What do you think? What industry events or shows do you attend? How did you find our company? What other companies did you look at? I'm obviously not going to read through every single one of these questions, but what I recommend is take a screenshot of this slide and reference back to it when you're looking to define your questions. I've been conducting voice of client interviews for over 15 years. So I'd like to say I've done it perfectly every time, but I haven't. So let me share some of my pro tips for things I learned along the way. Like any meeting with a client or prospect, you need to demonstrate that you value their time and input. I always ask for 45 or 60 minutes, and then if they say, well, I can only give you 30 minutes, I take it. Plus, what I found is that as you start getting these conversations going and people start talking about themselves, they're more likely to find just a little extra time to keep the conversation going. But you can't assume that, so about 5 minutes before your time's up, be sure to check in and say, look, we're here close to time. Any chance you have a few more minutes, because I'd like to get through 2 or 3 more questions. In addition to that, here are a few more of my best pro tips. Number 1, ask for permission to record. Your clients, prospects, they're giving you gold. So don't just rely on your memory. You really don't want to be taking feverishly writing down notes. So it's ideal to record so that you can go back and reference the information they gave you. Number 2, be sure to prepare. Thoughtfully prepare your questions beforehand. I just shared some questions with you. Use those, and definitely make sure that these are the right questions to ask. As I mentioned in that general category, there's always nuances, and you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of these interviews. So prepare those questions ahead of time and make sure that you're asking the right things. And number 3, as your clients are talking, write down the specific phrases and words that they use to describe your product and benefits. You'll use these later. And number 4, which is the most important one, and I can't say that enough, listen with intent. If someone's talking, don't have your phone out, give them your full attention. They may say something that requires you to follow up and ask another question that could be a major insight, and you definitely don't want to miss that. Remember that notebook or your notes app? Go get it. Time to get to work. Right now, I want you to do 2 different things. The first thing, I want you to start writing down a list of questions that you want to ask your clients. Sure, go ahead and refer back to that screenshot you took of my questions, but also, are there any other things that you're just dying to know about your clients? The second thing is, start writing down a list of those clients that you want to reach out to and talk to. It's a tendency to say, oh, I only want to talk to my raving fans or the happiest clients. Don't get caught in that trap. There's a ton to learn from those middling clients as well as those that aren't very happy. So be sure to include a broad spectrum. If you're a startup and you don't have any clients, don't worry, I've got you covered. What you want to do is write down a list of the people that you would like to talk to. Are there companies, are there people, are there titles that you wish that you had in your network or that you wish that you had on your prospect and client list? You can use that then and then use your network to figure out how to reach those people and set up informational interviews. That's all for today. No, don't stop writing yet. I'll let you go and I'll see you next time for step 3.